Alright folks, welcome back. Sheepdog Smokey here, and it's been a while. It has been quite a while since I was regularly posting. I've had a couple of things in between here and there, but I wanted to get back and start doing this regularly. One of the things that's been laid on my heart lately is I firmly believe we are in the run-up to the end days. Now, as I've said in other videos, I personally believe the rapture will happen prior to the 7 years of tribulation. There are 4 schools of thought on this: pre-tribulation, mid-tribulation, post-tribulation, and that the rapture will not happen, that the entirety of humanity alive when it starts will go through it as much as they can, some dying, some not. I believe we will be taken from the earth before it begins. That said, the study of the book of Revelation is very important because it lays out for us a very clear picture of what the last 7 years is going to look like, and kind of gives us a reason for it. I'm actually going through a book right now, and I'm starting with the 7 letters to the 7 churches, because to me that's really where you need to start. It is the why of the tribulation. It is explaining to the body of believers still on the earth, but prior to it happening, what is coming and why. And there's also a point to it that someone could, and this is at that time and even more poignant today, someone could have simply given a simple verbal message to someone who was going to be traveling to all 7 churches and said, hey, tell them this. This was Christ taking the time to dictate a letter to John on Patmos to be sent specifically for each of these 7 churches. Think of it in terms of today. How many letters do you receive that are not solicitations or bills or anything of that sort, sales and such? How many actual letters do you receive? I can tell you, I've written the first 2 letters in the last 20 years in the last week. My nephew is at Army Basic Training, and we finally got an address, and my parents have written him letters, I've written him letters, and I'm handwriting them. It's more personal than even an email. And I'll admit, I fall into the trap of send a short email or a text or even a message on social media to someone, as opposed to actually taking the time to sit down and put my thoughts to paper. And that shows how important something is when you devote time to it. Now, going back prior to this, just a short time, John was sent to Patmos by Emperor Domitian. Domitian very much expected him to suffer, starve, and die on the prison island of Patmos. We know that didn't happen as fast as Domitian wanted. John was kept alive, given a vision, able to write the vision down, and able to get that vision off of the island. Trust me, folks, in 1st century, 2nd century AD, when the Roman Empire sent you to a prison island, getting something off of that island was all but impossible. For the book of Revelation to have been written by John on that island and gotten off of the island to get back to the body of Christ is nothing short of miraculous. So this section is looking at Revelation 1, 9 through 20. And it really is the introduction to the end of time, the end of days on this planet, the end of this chapter of human history. Very much at this point, John perfectly illustrates the feelings of the Roman Empire toward Christianity. He was being targeted, he was being persecuted, but above that he was being tested, because this is the church after Christ has ascended into heaven. During Christ's earthly ministry, the Roman Empire didn't really know how to deal with this. It was very much a Jewish problem, a Judean problem, an Israeli problem, and they just kind of ignored it. Pilate even tried to say, I wash my hands of this prior to the crucifixion. But as the church grew and very much rejected the Roman gods and the Roman religion, well, emperors don't like that. So the church, and John specifically, was being persecuted. And this was very much a test. Not long after being sent to Patmos, John was visited by Christ. And the first thing that happened is he sensed the voice telling him to write letters. In this message, he was shown a vision of 7 candlesticks. And these are the 7 churches. And right after that vision, he sees Christ. And it's very important to look at this passage of his description of what he saw. His hair was white as snow, eyes like fire, a 2-edged sword coming out of his mouth, voice like water, and feet like brass. This is a powerful figure. When you think of fire, fire consumes. Fire very much consumes what may be hiding something, and you can't really do much to do anything with fire other than get away. I realize in the modern era we have a lot of technology that helps us save people from fire, but it is very much a beast unto itself. A voice like water. Water, as we can see all over the planet, cannot be stopped. You look at a flash flood season, and you have these monstrous trucks that think they can go through rushing water, and they're proven wrong. Water washes away everything, and it will wash away rock, given enough time. Feet like brass, very much a heavy metal, not going to be affected by where you walk. It shows that sense of power coming from Christ. But think about when reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or when reading any other part of the Bible, what is our vision of Christ as a person? I can tell you mine very much was a carpenter, a man with worn and weathered hands, sun-blistered skin from working outside, blisters all over his hands from working with them day in and day out. Often that kind smile from someone whose life was devoted to building to help others. And that's very much the Christ we saw through the Gospels. But remember that Christ is going to return in power. And this is what Revelation is showing us. The other thing to remember and think about is during his earthly ministry, John was very much the closest to Christ. You could call him his best friend. But in this passage, look at what John does. He falls to the ground in reverence. Think about if you hadn't seen your best friend in a year or more. To put it into a perspective pretty much everyone can relate to. Think about the military homecoming videos you see on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and others, where people are first shocked but then rush to embrace their loved one, their friend, their family who's come home after such a long absence. John doesn't do that. Even though during Christ's earthly ministry, they were very much just like that. But he falls to the ground. He knows who Christ is. But then Christ raises him up after John falls to the ground in worship. And that's very much what we will do when we meet him. Be that when we meet him during the rapture, when we meet him at the throne. It will just be, we are finally able to worship the God of creation. But Christ raises John and tells him to record what he's going to see. Meaning it's very important when Christ knows that humans were meant for fellowship with God. And after the fall and after his sacrifice, we feel that desire to worship our Creator. But he knows that this is very important because it will be the message to the world saying, this is what's coming. And if you're not ready, then you're going to perish. In the end of this one, the end of this little section, we see a reference to the stars, the angels of the seven churches. And there are two possible explanations. One, they are literally seven angels given to watch over the seven churches. And the seven churches, as we see now, are very much seven ways Christians live and worship today. It could mean that these are charismatic leaders, Billy Graham, Martin Luther, Reverend Martin Luther King, and others throughout history. I personally believe it is that they are seven angels because we know the angels watch over us. We know that they are given the ability to intercede on the earth. We know that there was an angel sent to Job. I believe it was Job. I'm going to have to go back and research this. If I'm wrong on this, please let me know. But there was an angel sent, I believe, to Job, who was delayed by the King of Persia for 7 days until the Archangel Michael interceded, and that angel was able to continue his journey. So we know we know that angels can act on our plane. We just don't see them. But think about this, and I'll be back next week with the next section. When you meet God, what do you want to be clear about your life, and what do you hope is not there? I would hope that God sees an obedient child, not one who shirks or is lazy. I will be the first to admit I've not been that way, not been that Christian for some time that I should be. That's why I believe I'm feeling this conviction now to make this series and to do more. I guess what I'm trying to say is we're very much approaching a precipice, a time when it will literally be a choice of surrendering to the creator of the universe or being forever separated from his presence. And that's not something I wish on anyone. And I will tell you, the one thing that comes back to my head, and it's really more than one. First of all, one of the most common phrases in the Bible is, don't be afraid. Fear not. Fear is not something God gives us. And I know I've said in other videos on other platforms, a healthy fear is not what, I don't believe that's what it's talking about. I have a fear of venomous snakes. I call that a healthy fear because what that led me to do, I don't want to be bitten by a rattlesnake or a copperhead or any of those because I know the venom is very, very dangerous. So I learned how to identify them. There's the old one, red touch yellow, kill a fellow, red touch black, friend of Jack. I know which ones are bull snakes and rat snakes versus rattlesnakes or moccasins or cottonmouths. And I know that if you act certain ways, they might attack or they might not. I have a very healthy fear of fire, and that is because I have served as a firefighter. I know how best to look for structural collapse due to it, how best to notice what will or will not be a volatile component in a fire, things of that nature. But for me, I call those healthy fears because they are not actually a fear to me. But we shouldn't be afraid of what's coming. We know it can't be stopped. And there's one thing, and I've come across this very recently, and I will tell you, it is one of the hardest things for anyone to say in a prayer. Because as humans, we're prideful creatures. We seek to control our lives. Firefighters especially. But it's to say, your will be done. To verbalize that statement of whatever happens, may it be your will, not mine. It's very difficult to surrender to that, and I know I struggle with it. But I would pray that you take away something from this, not being that what I've said is the only and absolute truth. I am not an expert by any means. I am a fallible human just like every other one on the planet. What I am is someone who has studied and read and is currently studying and reading again. And I'm bringing what I pick up from these studies to this series, hoping to spark a discussion. Because as believers, if we spark discussion between ourselves, we learn from each other. We can help correct each other when we're wrong. Such as my statement, I believe the angel sent to Job was delayed. It may have been an angel sent to someone else. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look. But also, non-believers who may see this. This, I firmly believe, is me planting a seed. And I know not everyone will be receptive, but for those who are, it prompts them and it gives them some information and it gets them to ask us questions. And then that discussion is very important. So I would pray that this video series sparks discussion and questions. We're very close. I firmly believe we're very close to the end of days. And as I've seen on some social media platforms, it's a hashtag that trends now and then, but I firmly see it as the duty of every Christian on the planet to make heaven as crowded as possible. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I hope every one of you have a great week, a fulfilling week, and that God moves in your lives, showing himself to you. Until next time, God bless you and have a wonderful day.